what is going on, everybody? Hope everybody is enjoying their weekend so far. Welcome back into SEC Talk. Much not more of SEC Talk, well, because there's really no other SEC football teams to talk about. But for this week, will be National Talk, as we will be previewing and predicting and giving our official picks for the National Championship game that will be concluding this 2025 college football season, with two unlikelies, with Indiana, the number 1 overall seed in the field of 12, and then the number 10 Miami Hurricanes, who are going to be having home field advantage at Hard Rock Stadium tomorrow night on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So if you have the day off, or if your company just doesn't allow you to have the day off, that's fine. Hopefully you'll have some time in the evening to consume this game. But other than that, we had a lot of great football. We have a great game going on between the Bears and the Rams. We have not really too much going on in the college football ranks. But Wade, how excited you are for tomorrow night's game between two teams that have not won a national title in quite some time, specifically Indiana?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really pumped for it. Indiana's kind of been the darling team of America. Right. No doubt. And then Miami, their return to the national presence. This is a team that we grew up hearing about being so good, but really we haven't lived it in a long time. So I think it's obviously the two best teams at this point. They both have to take down powerhouses within their respective conferences and outside of their respective conferences, and have veteran quarterbacks leading the way and really, really solid defenses. So we're in for a treat.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you missed our full-on season in review for the SEC, I put out a video, but if you want to go back and watch that, I definitely, if you want to go see like what teams exceeded expectations or maybe fell short of expectations, we went through a brief discussion on that. Just put a bow on the SEC season. So if you want to go check that out, we do have a video on our YouTube channel. Now let's go ahead and dive to get our viewers involved. If you have any questions pertaining to tomorrow night's game, drop your score predictions in the comment. We are live both on Facebook and on YouTube. So drop your score predictions, who you got winning and taking home the national championship. So if you have any questions or comments, whether that's the transfer portal news that's been happening over the past couple of weeks or this upcoming game that's going to be concluding this college football season, feel free to leave us a comment. We will get to it at the end of the show. So before we dive into our national championship preview, let's go ahead and dive to see how we ended up getting here. So I'll pretty much go through this pretty briefly here. This was the field of 12. So you had James Madison was your 12 seed. They were the champs out of the Sun Belt. Now you had a crazy scenario where you had the ACC champion get ultimately left out, as Duke finished 7-5. And they're not ever going to put a 7-5 team. It wasn't like last year where you had an automatic qualifying bid. James Madison was just a better overall team when it came to the conference champs. You did have another group of 5 representatives, Tulane. Tulane was the American Conference champs. They took down North Texas. The 10 seed, like we mentioned, Miami, they have definitely been the Cinderella story, if you want to call it. They were the last team in. There was that discussion where is it going to be Notre Dame? Was it going to be Miami? Ultimately, the Miami win over Notre Dame trumped them, and look where they are now.
Yeah,
number 9 seed. Huh? Yeah, absolutely. The number 9 seed was Alabama, and then number 8 seed was Oklahoma. 7 was Texas A&M. So you had 3 SEC teams right there. 6 was Ole Miss. So you did have a lot of SEC teams to start this. As you can tell, they got wiped away. Ole Miss was the last one standing. And then rounding out really the first round buys here, number 5 seed was Oregon. So you had Oregon taking down James Madison in what was not a very close game. Alabama was down 17-0 against Oklahoma early on in that first half. They stormed all the way back. Oklahoma's offense just couldn't really find any answers in the second half. Alabama wins and moves on. Ole Miss, dominant fashion. I think that pretty much everybody in the country expected that to happen. I mean, we already saw that game in the regular season. And then Miami in what was a low-scoring game, 10-3, a very windy day in Kyle Field. A lot of missed field goals, a lot of big plays from Mark Fletcher as Miami. That really started their run there. Then you move on to the second round. So your top 4 seeds were number 1 seed Indiana, the champs out of the Big Ten. The number 2 seed Ohio State, their one loss being the Indiana in the Big Ten championship. The 3 seed was Georgia. Georgia was the SEC champs. And number 4 seed was Texas Tech. They were the champs out of the Big 12 and the only Big 12 representative. I thought that we were going to get more Big 12 teams, especially with the hype of Arizona State, Kansas State, and Iowa State, but that conference kind of fell apart at the end. But Oregon and Texas Tech, I mean, that was a dominant showing by the Ducks, 23-0 win in the Orange Bowl. So pretty Texas Tech really one and done in this field of 12. We had a lot of blowouts in the second half, in the second round, of this field of 12. Indiana blew out Alabama in the Rose Bowl. That game was over before the game even started. Really good game between Ole Miss and Georgia. Probably the game of the playoff, in my opinion. I don't know if this national championship is going to top that, but it feels like to this moment that Ole Miss and Georgia game was really the tail of the tape between those two teams. And then finally, Miami pulling off the upset so far of this field of 12. They beat Ohio State, who was the defending champs. And then you move on to the semifinals. You had Oregon and Indiana. Well, that game was over before it even started either. I mean, Indiana, their 2 games that they have been in so far has not been close. So if they get to a close game, I'll be curious to see how they fare. And then Ole Miss and Miami, a great game down there in the Fiesta Bowl. So with all that being said, any surprises with how this really route ended up? We had the number 1 seed. I think that was pretty much expected. But seeing the number 10 seed, Miami, I don't think that a lot of people, penciled in Miami in that bottom half. It felt like it was either going to be Georgia or Ohio State. So talk about, what you thought about this whole entire college football playoff and how it went down.
Yeah, I mean, just like last year, we saw there not really being an advantage to being the top 4 seeds. The only team that survived out of the top 4 is playing for a championship tomorrow. But yeah, it hurt the rest of the top 4. And, I think there's some truth to that. I think it's good to get the nerves out of the way. In that second round, you're playing away from home either way. So it does kind of take some of the advantage away from it. I mean, all these teams are good at this point. So there's really no such thing as an upset in a neutral site when you have a month to prepare for the game. So I thought that was interesting. This might be the last time we see it with just 12 anyways. So that trend might be no more. But yeah, I mean, I think we expected Indiana to do what they're doing. Miami took out Ohio State, who we expected to be there with them. And then Ole Miss was kind of the other darling, taking out Georgia in their path and almost taking out Miami. It was a very close game. So I think, like I mentioned kind of in the intro, it's just been the defense and then the veteran quarterback play. I think that's what got these teams past the rest. I mean, Ole Miss was pacing there with the quarterback play for sure with Trinidad Chambliss, but their defense let them down at the end. And then Oregon's defense, man, they fell apart against Indiana, and Dante Moore did not have the quarterback play that he had all year. So Indiana and Miami, if you look at it, they're the 2 teams that have consistently played great defense and have had good performances with Mendoza and Beck. So I guess that's the recipe for success.
Yeah, it's like crazy how different routes. Like Indiana had 2 blowouts. Miami first round 10-3 game, and then Miami Ohio State another low scoring game, and then Miami Ole Miss. They had to score in the last couple of seconds with a Carson Beck rushing touchdown. So it's really been, I don't want to say like the easiest versus the hardest path, but the way that Indiana's been playing, I mean, that's about as easy a path as you can get. On the other hand, Miami has been in a lot of wars. So it's definitely going to be a very interesting game down there in the 305 as Miami, like I mentioned, will be having the home field advantage. But we saw Indiana travel really well all the way down there in the Peach Bowl. You didn't really see any Oregon fans. I'm going to be curious to see if it's like a 50-50 split or maybe it's like 60-40 Miami. But that is definitely going to be interesting to look because that's always the storyline. You see in the Super Bowl a couple of times. I know I mentioned this in last week's show, but we will see if Miami has that, quote unquote, home field advantage here. But we will have to see. All right, let's go ahead and dive into our official national championship preview and picks. Before we get into our official picks, let's go ahead and pick a player that we are most looking forward to watch tomorrow night's game. Let's start with the Indiana Hoosiers. What player, it could be offense, defense, special teams, what player are you excited to watch tomorrow night?
A lot to choose from. I mean, Mendoza's the the obvious pick for sure. But I'm gonna go with let's go with the receiving game. I think Surratt. I
Yeah.
mean, he obviously is a big target. I'm curious to see how he faces Miami. Last time we saw Miami, they were a little hobbled, and they have, I think, their starting safety out for the first half. So let's see how aggressive Indiana is at attacking downfield early while they're down a starter and potentially down multiple starters. So I'm looking at that Mendoza to Surratt connection.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the defensive side. D'Angelo Pons has
Yeah.
been one of their best cornerbacks this season. And if he's going to be on Malachi Tony, who's going to be Miami's clear wide receiver one, then, I mean, they're going to have to limit the big plays for that. And Miami, you could also say Kamara, their defensive tackle, is also going to be a huge threat, especially with Mark Fletcher. Mark Fletcher has been the MVP, it feels like, for Miami. He had a big game. It feels like in every game that Miami has been involved in. So those are two players, one on offense, one on defense. Now let's go on to the Miami Hurricane side. I guess I'll start off, and since I'm talking about Mark Fletcher, I'm going to go ahead and say that Mark Fletcher is my player to watch. Like I mentioned, I mean, I know that everybody wants to zone in on Malachi Tony, the star freshman receiver for the Hurricanes. But nobody has been able to run on Indiana in this playoff, not even in the regular season. You saw it in the Big Ten championship game. Ohio State was one of the most elite rushing attacks that they had in the Big Ten, and they had no answers whatsoever. So, but if Miami can't effectively run the football, it's going to be a very long day for Carson Beck. I know you do have C.J. Daniels and Malachi Tony. Those are two elite wide receivers, but you're going to need Mark Fletcher to get some big rushes, wear down this defensive line that has been elite this whole entire college football season. So my pick is Mark Fletcher. What is your pick for the Miami Hurricanes?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Malachi Tony definitely sticks out. They're going to have to get him involved. But like you said, Miami's had very good production from all three of their receivers, and Daniels and Marion as well. So I'm going to go with the guy throwing to all those guys, Carson Beck. I mean, he's been lights out so far in the playoff. I think his only turnovers were really not even on him. There was a ball where it was like a read option, and they fumbled the exchange, and then I think there was a interception that got off a tipped pass. So I mean, he's really done a good job of protecting the football. That's kind of what haunted him at Georgia. But he's really picked it up with his legs as well. And, he scored the game-winning touchdown last week on the ground. So I think he's going to have to extend some plays and force the ball into tight coverage. I mean, you mentioned it, D'Angelo Pons. He's going to be on at least one of those guys. They might even move him around, just depending on the formation. So Carson Beck's going to have to bring it.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are just some key players to watch on both sides of the ball. And now let's dive into our final pick'em of this college football season. We do have the number 10 Miami Hurricanes. Like I mentioned, they are playing in their home stadium, but since they are the higher seed, they will be the away team. And the number 1 seed, the Indiana Hoosiers. And like I mentioned, it's been quite some time since Miami has been the national championship since the early 2000s. The last one that they were in was that 2003 national championship game against Ohio State. Indiana, I couldn't even tell you when was the last time they've been a national championship game. They never have. Well, it's always going to be a first. But Indiana is the 7.5-point favorite in this one. They have been dominant, like I mentioned, dominant win in their first game, the playoff against Alabama, and then in the second game against Oregon in the semifinal. Miami, like I mentioned, they've had to win with defense in their first 2 games, and then offense in their last game against Ole Miss, where I mentioned they did have to win in the final seconds with Carson Beck running the ball. So Miami versus Indiana. Wade, who ultimately will be crowned the 2025 national champs?
Oh, man, I just – this matchup's crazy because pre-NIL you would have never seen Indiana in the championship. And I get it. They've put money into their program, as has Miami. And then next year, we already talked about their portal class. It's fantastic, and they're really starting to buy into NIL. But it took a special group of guys to commit to, this team and Coach Cignetti. And, I mean, they really were building something from the ground up. Miami, a traditional power, of course, but kind of been off the national radar for a bit and really had a resurgent year. They've had talent on that roster for the last, 5 or 6 years, it seems. But this is the year they finally put it together. But what a storyline it would be for Indiana to enter the season as the all-time losingest program in college football history and just run the gauntlet and go 15-0, beat Oregon twice, beat Ohio State in the conference championship, and take down Miami. So I got them doing just that. I'm going to go with Indiana. I think this is just a team of destiny. Miami looks really good right now. But, they've had some low points in their season, and sometimes that defense isn't all it's chalked up to be, and they get involved in shootouts. We saw it against Ole Miss. We saw it against Louisville, SMU, even in the opener against Notre Dame. I just think that Mendoza's humming the ball too well, and I got Indiana putting up some points. I'll give them the cover too. I'm going to go Indiana 38, Miami 27.
Well, there you go. You got Indiana in the cover. So, yeah, like you mentioned, I think that this is two of the best defenses that we have seen in college football. I mean, their defensive lines like Ruben Bain, Messidor, and then Indiana led by Kamara and a lot of others, like I mentioned. And then like Indiana and all their college football playoff games, they have got off to a fast start. And if they get off to a fast start, once again, like I mentioned, like Miami's offense just isn't like that elite caliber offense. There's nothing against Miami's offense. I know that, like I mentioned, with their playmakers, you got Mark Fletcher, you got Malachi Tony, CJ Daniels, but it feels like if they get down like 10 plus, that's going to be a deep hole, especially against this elite Indiana defense. So Miami, like I mentioned, they are going to have some home field advantage. Will that matter? Yes, but I just think, like you mentioned, Indiana just feels like the team of destiny. Like you mentioned, that's a great storyline. Like for them to enter this season as having like the most losses in program history in college football to now like being the national champs if they do win this game against Miami. I think this is going to be the closest game that Indiana is going to be involved in this playoff run. I do think they still cover. Give me Indiana to win this one. I think it's going to be like 34-24. But I am going to go with the Hoosiers winning the Natty in the 305. Well, it's a clean sweep. We'll see if this blows up in our face or not. But we are all rolling with the Hoosiers. Chet obviously has some storylines with them in our first dynasty that we did. He was the Indiana Hoosiers. He took
predicted the success, man.
He started the success for him, and he looks like he is finishing that. So we are all picking the Crimson and Cream hoisting the national championship trophy there. So all picking the Hoosiers, like I mentioned. Those in the comments, if you want to drop your score predictions, let us know. We will definitely keep track of that. And hopefully, we can go out on a win because, in our Bowl Mania, we did pretty well as a group. And overall this season, I don't think that many people on the panel went into the negatives. So all on the Hoosiers. So we have the Hoosiers winning the national championship to close out this season. Now let's dive into some transfer portal overall update here, as this has been a crazy transfer portal period, especially for the teams at the top. I tried to get all of our programs, but this would have not fit. So I just went with the top 6. We're just going to go through like how many commits. I won't go through like the points and all that. I got this off of 24/7 Sports. They have On3. So yeah, multiple websites. It's going to fluctuate with every website that you pick. But the number 1 overall transfer portal class, you see the commits, 38 commits so far. Would not be shocked at all if Lane Kiffin gets to
a whole new team.
Commits. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much a new team, pretty much a rehaul from the Brian Kelly era. So far you see there they have 1 5-star, 11 4 stars, 23 3 stars. I won't get into all that too much. Number 2 is Ole Miss. It looks like P. Golden Squad is still revamping that roster a little bit. They did have some key players in the portal right now. I know that Caden Lee's in the portal. That's going to really change. So if Trinidad Chambliss gets another year, then Lee is going to return. But if Chambliss doesn't, Caden Lee may end up with his old teammate at Missouri, or maybe go to Georgia, maybe go to LSU, and LSU gets like 11 wide receivers so far in the class. I guess we will have to see with that. Number 3 is Texas. The Longhorns so far have 16 commits. It has definitely been a lot of key players for Texas. Texas, they did lose their top 2 running backs with C.J. Baxter and Quintrivion Wisner, but they've been able to retool. I mean, they got the best wide receiver in the portal by far with Cam Coleman. So with Wingo and Coleman, that's going to be an interesting wide receiver 1-2 punch there. So let's stop there at the top three. Then we'll go through the next tier. So looking at the top three, any surprises with LSU being at number one and Ole Miss and Texas being right behind them?
I think Ole Miss is just kind of riding that high right now. But look, they've proven that they bring in transfers and they have immediate impacts. I mean, look at their quarterback and running back this year, as well as some key players on defense. So with some of those departures, they have immediate needs and guys that can contribute to a top 10 football team. So no surprise there. I guess the surprise is where's a Georgia logo? Yeah. Where's an Alabama logo? Certainly you expect to see them trying to pace with LSU and Texas. So a little surprising not to see a G or an A, but definitely not a surprise to see Texas and LSU trying to gun it. I mean, they're big spenders. LSU had a lot of holes to fill.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's dive into the next tier. Kentucky, that is definitely a logo that we have not seen in quite some time in the transfer portal. Will Stein, I think that he's going to do a fantastic job. And Lexington already said it. Kentucky's going to be one of those teams that I'm going to be riding with to start the 2026 season. I know Joe Sloan's going to be their offense coordinator, but I do think that they have the offensive weapons there. I mean, C.J. Baxter is going to be their leading running back. And even with Cutter Boley leaving to Arizona State, they did, attack that position in the transfer portal. And they got a lot of key offensive linemen as well as defensive side there. So looking at that, most of their, commits have come through 3 stars, 21 3 stars, 5 4 stars, 27 overall commits for the Cats. Texas A&M looks like Mike Elko coming off of A&M's, historic season. I know it's kind of a dud ending, but other than that, really, I think that Texas A&M is definitely going to build some momentum here. Marcel Reed coming back, Mark Cravers going to be coming back as well in Texas A&M. I mean, they got the money to spend and get whoever out of the portal. 18 commits so far. We will see if the Aggies spend any more money on that. And then Auburn finishing out the top 6. So, Byron Brown is definitely the new toy that I definitely think that a lot of Auburn fans are going to be excited for. I know that you did lose Eric Singleton and Cam Coleman to the transfer portal, but I think that Auburn's offense overall is just going to be a breath of fresh air. You actually have a quarterback that can actually throw the football more than 10 yards. But I just think that Auburn, 31 commits. So with new head coaches, you're seeing LSU with 38, Kentucky with 27, Ole Miss with 24, Auburn with 31. So that's just going to happen. You're going to have a lot of players go out, a lot of players come in. So in the next tier, like you mentioned, we don't see any G logo, any Alabama logo. We see Kentucky and Auburn in the top 6 of that. So that definitely has to catch your eye there.
Yeah, definitely Kentucky. They're backing their new coach. They're getting him talent to work with. They brought in former Texas running back to start. I think that's where we're at in college football, that somebody would leave Texas to start at Kentucky. I don't know the whole story there, but good for Kentucky. And then A&M, they're going to always be on these lists. Auburn, they lost their most talented player to the portal. I think to Texas, right?
Yep.
So they needed to hit the portal themselves and first get a quarterback, which they did, and then just kind of beef up the rest of the team. Also trying to get off on the right foot with a new coach. All the teams that hired new coaches in the SEC, as you can see, are up here in the list. They're trying to bring in their guys, their system. So, it makes sense.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up those rankings because I know that we've had a crazy transfer portal. The portal did close just a couple of days ago, I believe, either on the 15th, on the 16th that it closed. So you can still sign commitments, but no more players can now enter the portal. And there's only one transfer portal. Usually in the past couple of years, there's been a winter portal and then a spring portal. The spring portal does not exist anymore. So that's going to be all she wrote. This is how you're going to build your roster, and then you'll find out in the spring. And then you'll have fall practices as well leading up to the season. So that is how the top 6 is. You see LSU a pretty good lead over the Rebels. LSU also the number 1 overall transfer portal class. And this could honestly get even better, especially if they can land Jordan Seaton, who is, he was a 5-star tackle, went to Colorado. Looks like Oregon and LSU is his top 2 so far. So we will see if LSU can get to 40. I wouldn't be shocked at all if that happens. But that's just crazy to see, like, how many commits, like, all these schools are getting. Like, it's crazy that without the transfer portal, like, you pretty much, if you wanted to reload your roster, you had to do it through the recruiting ranks. In high school now, you can do it with a little bit of both. Okay, now let's close out the show with some hot topics. We do have one more key player returning to the SEC. Oklahoma quarterback John Mateer has announced earlier this week that he's returning for another season with Oklahoma. So definitely good news, don't you think, Wade?
Yeah, he was one that we weren't too sure about, hadn't heard one way or another, but ultimately I think he showed some good stuff. I think that he was more injured than he and the team let on. And they probably rushed him back a little bit, and he wasn't fully ready. So I think now that he's got some experience under his belt, and we know this defense is going to be good. I think Oklahoma could maintain their success, but they will have to maybe add another playmaker at receiver, I think, to complement Satanga. So look for them to be aggressive on that front.
Yeah, it's always nice, to get a seasoned veteran coming back, and you don't have to like reload going into the transfer portal or rely on a true freshman. It's going to be nice for Oklahoma fans to have that guy and experience, and we're going to get a full season, fully healthy season. Hopefully, I know that John Mateer ultimately only missed like one game, and then he came back for the Texas game. I feel like other than that, like outside of that, he just didn't look the same before that injury. So I'm going to be curious to see how he looks fully healthy. Especially with this Oklahoma offense. And yeah, this Oklahoma defense, was very elite for them. They were a championship level defense, but the offense was very lacking, especially the late end of the season. So that's definitely going to be a key storyline for the Sooners heading into the 2026 season. I know we were a little bit late on this, but we haven't really discussed Sam Leavitt news. LSU has racked up. Everybody was like, oh, LSU had 0 quarterbacks. What are they going to do? Well, they signed 3. The first one was Elon quarterback, Landon Clark. Then they had Sam Leavitt, and then Longstreet, the USC quarterback, a former 5-star quarterback coming out of high school. So Sam Leavitt, he is dealing with an injury. He won't be expected for the spring. Looks like the return is going to be in May. So just talk about all that and how Sam Leavitt is going to fit into this Lane Kiffin offense.
Yeah, I think that Lane Kiffin got – his first choice, his guy, kind of has shades of Jackson Dart if you watch his play. Very quick, definitely a gifted runner if he, does get to full health with that leg. So yeah, I think this was a good fit for LSU. I know there was some drama. LSU was rumored to be interested in Washington's quarterback, and the news came out while Leavitt was on campus sitting right beside Lane Kiffin allegedly. So that wasn't great. But I think that Lane Kiffin, look, it's an ever-changing environment. If you don't have multiple prospects, you could get stood up at the altar, and that's all this is. If Sam Leavitt was truly all on LSU, he wouldn't have had that visit with Tennessee scheduled or Miami scheduled. So if he's got those visits scheduled, then LSU's got to have another option. But ultimately, they were able to come to an agreement. I think the surprise in all this was then adding Husan Longstreet. Kind of looked like a guy that was leaving USC because he wanted to play immediately. And if Sam Leavitt's healthy, you're not paying him $5 million to sit the bench. But now it looks like they're going to be paying Longstreet multiple $1 million just to be his understudy for a year.
And I saw that they were paying Longstreet.
Yeah, that's crazy. But I guess that's the cost.
Yep. Cost the high-level quarterbacks.
Yeah, and he does have some eligibility left, so he could be the future,
Yeah, he has 4 years of eligibility, so it could be the long-term solution once Leavitt's gone. Because Leavitt could be a 1-year project. Say he blows it up, he's just going to be a 1-year deal.
Yeah. Which I think it's good to go get a splash guy like that, and show out year one. But I think it's awesome to have the next guy waiting in the wings. And I think Clark is good depth as well, especially if we missed out on Longstreet or if Levitt, takes a little bit longer to get back from injury. So a good job by Kiffin. It took some patience. I was getting frustrated, but it worked out. And I think one thing that's interesting to note is with the expanded redshirt rule now, I mean, coaches should use that to their advantage and try to play these young guys as much as they can, so that they maintain that red shirt, but they get some legit experience. I mean, Longstreet could play mop-up duty in like 7 or 8 games this year and still maintain that red shirt and get that experience. So look for that too. I mean, I think you'll see all of these guys step on the field at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have some more quarterback news to get into. Former Colorado quarterback Ryan Staub transfers to Tennessee. Now, Tennessee was in the mix for Sam Levitt. Levitt ended up, like we mentioned, went to LSU. But it sounded like that Joey Aguilar, kind of like a Trinidad Chambliss situation, is going to be able to get that another year of eligibility and return to be the volunteer signal caller. So I'll be honest with you, Wade. I don't know really too much about Ryan Staub. I don't know if he's really going to be the answer for Tennessee. But what do you think about Tennessee's overall quarterback situation if you do not have Joey Aguilar?
Well, I mean, I think Staub is experienced, and I think he's a good, definitely a good backup at the very least. I would like to see Tennessee go with one of the guys they currently have, if they're not going to add any more star power. I don't know who else they could get at this point, but yeah, it'll be interesting to follow the Aguilar situation. I think, like Diego Pavia, he came from junior college, so he has a little bit more of a claim than Trinidad Chambliss does. Even though Trinidad Chambliss came from Division II, that's still NCAA football, so he's therefore out of eligibility. So Aguilar, I mean, he might have a case, but either way, I'm making this an open competition if I'm Tennessee. And Aguilar, he played well, but definitely didn't show us anything in that bowl game to say that he's the undisputed guy.
Yeah, good point there. All right, let's get now to off of these transfer portal. We do have some college football playoff expansion. The Big Ten and SEC pretty much in a stalemate and agreement. The deadline to reach an agreement, I guess, overall for the conferences, if they do want to expand the playoff, will be Friday. But the Big Ten, they want to expand to 24. The SEC wants to expand to 16. Which side are you on the spectrum? And by Friday, do you think that we will get an expansion, or do you think that we are just going to stay at 12? I know that you're big on these formats. You're the scheduling guy. I'll give you a little bit, a couple of moments to give you a platform here just to see what you think about all this.
I like 16. I mean, I think 16 is good. I think 24 is too much.
Yeah, way too much. We don't want to get into like March Madness territory.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there's always a debate on the last 2 teams that didn't make it. Like, we're going to have that debate whether it's 130 or 16.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
there's going to be somebody disappointed.
Yeah, but I mean, 16, you're going to get all the conference champions. Shit, this year you're probably going to have a team like Duke in there, but whatever. And I think the bye clearly hasn't been beneficial.
Nope.
Only one team has made it out in 2 years, so I think that's a detriment to the game. I think you line them up, Ohio State would have played, Indiana would have played, Georgia would have played, and we might see an occasional upset where Tulane knocks off Georgia or something, but I think most years we're going to see the 1 through 4 seeds win, and they'll be warmed up and ready to go for the second round. So I like 16. I think you can confidently include a group of 5 team at that point and just stick them against the 1 seed. And then I think from there, I think you could look at giving every conference champion a spot, or you could just look at the top 15 teams at that point. I don't think it really matters. I think you're going to get the right teams in there. It kind of mimics the NFL format. So that's what I would be in favor of.
Yeah, so I agree. If we do go to expansion, like 24 is just way too much. That's just an overkill at this point. I think I would be fine with 16. If we do stay at 12, what I really want to see is the top 4 seeds to be able to host as well. Because I feel like, it's great and all to have a bye. But you see like the 5 and the 8, the 7, all that get really, a boost to playing at home. I'm okay with these neutral site games, but it feels like honestly we should have like home games throughout. Like the national championship game, I'm cool with having neutral site games, but honestly, that's just like what makes college football so different from the NFL and all these other major leagues. Like the environments in these college football stadiums, especially when you get to the playoffs, is just off the charts. So that's what I want to see will happen. I would doubt it. I mean, all these bowl games, like the Rose Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, all have these historic feats and ties to these major conferences. So I think we're ultimately by Friday. I honestly think we're not going to get agreement from the Big Ten and the SEC because those are two other major conferences and commissioners that cannot agree on anything. So I think that all this is just going to be a moot point anyways. We're just going to stay at 12. It's going to be the same format. And like I've been saying, like I'm okay with the one group of 5 representative, but we cannot let this happen ever again of having 2 group of 5 teams, because I would have way rather see like a team like Notre Dame or Vandy over James Madison, hell, or even Tulane. I mean, James Madison at least gave us somewhat of a fight. Tulane just didn't stand any chance whatsoever. But that's just my takeaways. We will see what happens by the Friday deadline, but it sounded like what I've seen on reports that the Big Ten and SEC aren't going to agree, and that they are just going to stay with the 12. But the 12 honestly has been working. I mean, obviously, the past couple of years, you've had 1 or 2 teams say, oh, we should have been in the playoff over the X team or Y team. But that's going to happen. It happened in the BCS. It happened in the 4-team playoff, like Wade mentioned. You could have the whole damn country involved, like 130 teams, and you would still have 2 teams, complaining about that. That is all of our hot topics, and that is the conclusion of our SEC talk football version, at least. We will be back, I guess, in a month or just a little bit less than that. We have the college baseball season getting underway in mid-February, so we will be kicking off our SEC baseball season preview. This is our first time introducing some baseball content. I know that we've been diving into like the SEC baseball tournament, and we've also done like the postseason going all the way to Omaha. But this will be our first time that we will be having a season-long show. It won't be like this football version of it where it won't be every single week. It's going to be every other week or just like a monthly recap of the key series. But that's going to be our next show here, a live show at least. We will continue on with our content. We have the NFL concluding, and then we'll have the NFL draft. I'll probably be doing some mock drafts here. I know it's only January. That's just the time of it. But that's pretty much how our outlook is going to be. We will be introducing some basketball as we always do. We'll get into our SEC conference basketball tournament. I don't want to start up a basketball since we're already in January, so we're just going to let the season play out. And then we will have our March Madness selection special as we all do there. So that's just a little bit how we do there. So the SEC talk, we're not saying our goodbyes. It's just a see you later. We're going to take a little bit of a break here for the next couple of weeks, get rejuvenated, and get ready for baseball season. Because as you can see in the background, the way that LSU's been cooking on the diamond. 2 out of the last.
We got to talk about it.
Yeah, national champions. We're going to talk about it this season. So, Wade, any closing thoughts on another successful SEC Talk football season? And next season, we will be kicking off our 10-year season here on SEC Talk. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, 10 years. Crazy. I think I'm at least at 5, if not more. So, yeah, it's always an honor to be a part of it. We say it every year. It goes by fast, and we appreciate you guys being along for the ride. And I'm excited to see what we can do in year 10. I think it's a good idea to introduce some baseball content. We're talking about it every day in our group chats anyway, so we might as well share our thoughts. And that's kind of how this football show started. Organically, really, just talking about football together and then putting it out here for everybody. So looking forward to doing that with baseball, and just kind of giving you the whole SEC realm at that point. I mean, obviously SEC baseball is top notch, as is the football. Yep. So it's a good thing to cover, and stay tuned. We might have some new segments, some new graphics, logos. I mean, to commemorate the 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, absolutely. We're also going to be keep it on with SEC Fantasy. We'll be rolling into baseball season, so I will definitely be excited to play with that. And Wade and I have been.
I'll let Tyler come up with the rules on that.
Yeah, we'll be playing. We've been playing fantasy baseball on the side, and it's just fun to keep along with it because MLB season is long and grueling. So it's just something fun to keep track of. So we're going to do a little similar for SEC Fantasy. Like I mentioned, we'll try to come up with some rules. I know that's going to be. To football, it's just a one game, but it's a full series. So we will definitely come up with a plan of that. I appreciate everybody for tuning in all season long to our football talk show. And we will be back in just under a month as we kick off our 2025 or 2026 SEC baseball season preview as all of our 16 representatives get underway on the diamond. So with all that being said, with Wade and I, we wish you all the rest of your week. Enjoy your holiday weekend if you do have the day off tomorrow. And we will see you in February to kick off the baseball season. So for Wade and I, so long for now.